And away we go. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome, one and all, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, to Coffee Talk. That's right, it's time for Coffee Talk. And you can find me on the live portion, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday, on YouTube at Coffee Talk Live or at Prepper University, simultaneously broadcasting on both channels, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter. And I don't know if I can see the comments from there, but I can see the comments from both YouTube channels. And there's also Fistful of Radio, fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. So, as always, I do try to read through as many of the comments as is plausible for those of you who are listening and not able to see what's going on. So I'll go ahead and acknowledge some of the people that have chimed in thus far. I see Helter is here. Donna Beaver is here, who reminds us to give it a thumbs up, like, and share, which would be much appreciated if you could do that. Dragon is here. Zane is here, wondering if we're going to talk about Texas. Kind of hard not to, with as much as it's in the news, really. Sven is here, says news good, bad, and ugly, or information good, bad, and ugly, pretty much. Urban Angst is here. Brian is here. David Jones is here from Canada. We got a few people from Canada. And South Florida is here. Glad you could make it today. Those are the people that have chimed in thus far on the live portion on YouTube as we get ready to dive into the news. And naturally, since the subject of Texas was brought up, we may as well go ahead and knock it out. And we'll jump right to sweet old, dear old, lovable old, reliable old, honest old, trust him with your life, Uncle Joe. In the Associated Press, there he is. Biden offers fresh assurances he would shut down the border right now if Congress would send him a deal. Oh, is that how it works? So here we go. Bidding to salvage a border deal in Congress that also would unlock money for the Ukraine, which is where the bulk of that money is going. We've already seen this. President Joe Biden offered fresh assurances Saturday night that he would be willing to close the U.S.-Mexico border if lawmakers would only send him a bill to sign. Biden, also eager to disarm GOP criticism of his handling of migration at the border, said at a political event in South Carolina that he would shut down the border right now if Congress passed the proposed deal. The framework hasn't been formally agreed to by Senate Democrats and Republicans and would face an uncertain future in the GOP-controlled House. Well, the Democrats don't like this deal either. It's ridiculous. So here we go. Quote, a bipartisan bill. I'm going to add that to my list of words I'm tired of hearing. Bipartisan. Shut up. Stop pretending like there's only two of you and that you're at odds, but somehow you're going to cooperate. Bullshit. A bipartisan bill would be good for America and help fix our broken immigration system and allow speedy access for those who deserve to be here. And Congress needs to get it done, Biden said. Oh, so you admit that it's a broken immigration system, huh? I wonder who broke it. It also gives me, as president, the emergency authority to shut down the border until it could get back under control. If the bill were that bill were the law today, I'd shut down the border right now and fix it quickly. So you're admitting you could shut it down, and you're admitting you could fix it. And you're admitting that it is a broken system, and you're admitting that it's not working. Now the next step is to admit that it's your damn fault, because we have never had a problem like this before. It's never been like this. Never. You could sit there and blame Trump if you want. You can blame Obama if you want. Dude, you're the one that signed the bill, that's signed the executive order to tie the Border Patrol's hands. I believe it was an executive order, right? You can correct me if I'm wrong there in the comments. You did this. And now you're basically holding it hostage. You're using it as leverage to get what you want so that you can send tens of billions of dollars more of taxpayer money to the Ukraine and pour it into that money pit. Because something like, what, 70, 75 plus percent of that bill is Ukraine money. And then there's a little bit for Israel, and then there's a little bit for the border, and then there's a couple other dollars in there for this, that, and the other. But the bulk of it, the lion's share, is Ukrainian money. And you're trying to use a crisis you created as leverage to manipulate the circumstances. That's government for you, folks. 81 million votes. The deal being negotiated in Congress would require the U.S. to shutter the border if roughly 5,000 migrants cross illegally on any given day. Some one-day totals last year exceeded 10,000. Yeah, that's about the average right now. So you'll shutter, you say you'll close the border, but then the things that the paperwork says you'll shut it at 5,000 a day, which usually is the average right now. Didn't used to be like that. And some days have more, but big deal. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. Catching up a few more comments here. Bingo's joined us today, as well as D-Lo. Boogers is here. Semper Fi is here. Urban says Biden and his handlers are actively enabling a foreign invasion. It will be interesting to see how Texas responds. Alberta is watching closely. Yeah, you're next. Helter says, what deal does he want? The executive branch is supposed to protect the border in which Biden has been derelict. Laws are on the books to enforce. He chose not to enforce those laws. Correct. And preparedness veteran and Velvet Pilot has joined us, as well as all people. And Holly is here today. Glad you all could make it. Zane said San Francisco admitted that they could clean up the homeless camps, but they choose not to drive down property value and do a land grab. Oh, choose not to drive down property value and do a land grab. Yeah, we've talked about that a lot. That's what's going on. I believe that the executive branches in California, the lawmakers there, Governor Newsom and the rest of them, are in on it. It's a big scheme, in my opinion, to destroy California. So those, who is it? The tech billionaires from Silicon Valley can sweep up huge areas of property really cheap for their planned 15-minute cities and utopian little cities that they've been working on, that they've already been buying property and trying to set up. Dragon says what he means is that he will shut down the border crossings if more than 5,000 people enter per day for a week's average. Yeah, that's what we caught up with on the comments there, or rather, not on the comments, but in the later in the paragraph here. So he created a problem. You know, that's like you walk up to somebody and you cut them, you slash them with a knife, and they're bleeding, and they're like, "What the hell, man?" And you're like, "I'm sorry, you want some bandages for that?" And they say, "Yeah." And it's like, "Well, I'd like to give you some bandages, but I need you to do something for me first." That's what it sounds like. That's what it looks like. Donna says that they're all for closing the border down for a few years, letting no one in. Yeah, no kidding. Lock it down. Clamp it down. Clamp it down. Cross those legs. Don't let anybody in. And speaking of Texas, one more here. Timothy says, should he be punished for not enforcing the laws? Yeah, he should be, but he won't be. What's the worst thing they can do to him? Impeach him? We know how well that works. Clinton was impeached. Trump was impeached. The district attorney of Pennsylvania was impeached 2 years ago. He's still in office. I think it was Pennsylvania, correct? And Boris is here. Glad you could make it today. As we jump over here, We're going to jump to Texas directly because this is on the books now. This is happening. We'll see how well it works out. And Raccoon says only a moron would open borders in the middle of a pandemic. Well, a plandemic, as it were. And they knew that that was never as serious as they acted anyways. So there's a lot of contradictions with the entire C virus scare. A lot of contradictions. I mean, you already have Fauci now sitting in interviews admitting that they made all that shit up. Literally, the whole mask thing, the 6-foot distance thing. He admitted it recently that, yeah, it doesn't work. We didn't know what we were doing. We just wanted to put some rules out. Thanks, Fauci. Newsweek article, you might have heard about this. Take our borders back convoy to descend on Texas. Yes, this is a thing. Thousands of people will reportedly converge on the southern border this week as part of a convoy seeking to stop migrants illegally entering the U.S. It comes amid Texas's escalating feud with the Biden administration over immigration enforcement. Last week, the Supreme Court allowed Border Patrol agents to resume cutting razor wire that Texas installed along a stretch of the U.S.-Mexico border. The wire was among a series of aggressive measures that Texas Governor Greg Abbott has taken at the border in a bid to curb illegal crossings. He remained defiant despite the high court's ruling, saying Texas had a constitutional right to self-defense. And I agree. Now the Take Our Border Back convoy is heading to border towns in Texas, Arizona, and California to call on the government to secure the southern border. The group, which is organizing on the Telegram platform, has billed the convoy and accompanying rallies as peaceful assembly and prayer. Because it is a religious movement, from my understanding. Quote, calling all active and retired law enforcement and military veterans, mama bears, elected officials, business owners, ranchers, truckers, bikers, media, and law-abiding, freedom-loving Americans. The group says on its website and posters promoting the events, the time is now for we, the people, to peacefully assemble in honor of our constitutional rights to call on our government to take action and secure our borders. The plan is for the convoy to leave Virginia Beach, Virginia on Monday, that's today, and make a stop in Jacksonville, Florida, before continuing on to Eagle Pass, Texas. According to the group's website, the convoy will then split up for the rallies in 3 states on Saturday, one near Eagle Ridge Pass, another in Yuma, Arizona, and a third in San Ysidro, California. The group has so far raised $125,000 from donations on Give, Send, Go pages as of Monday morning. It remains to be seen how this works out. Because sometimes Americans get too lazy or too scared, like with the whole trucker convoy thing that took place in Canada, and they tried to duplicate it here. And these people spent 2 weeks driving all across country only to get to DC and be turned around at a checkpoint when they were ordered to do so. They didn't even try. They just gave up, just like that. A far cry from the stand that we saw at the Bundy Ranch, where they went down there, they piled up, and they stayed. They were turning people away. Specifically, they were turning away groups that they thought were too edgy. But you see my point. So we went from Bundy Ranch, let's stand up for something. Whether you agree with that or not, it's not the point. To, we're going to do what Canada's doing, trucker convoy, and they soil their pants and turn right around and went back where they came from immediately when they hit the checkpoint by DC. They just hung it up just like that. So it'd be interesting to see if they make it to Texas and if they actually stay. So as we catch up here, a few more comments. Maddie is here, says, hi from Australia. We watch with interest. Whatever happens there affects us 6 months later. Same thing could be said for Australia there, Maddie, because Lawmakers love looking at Australia and saying, see, they got away with it. Let's try it here. Yeah, and you know how that works. And Max is here. He says, what's up? Have you seen the Vince McMahon lawsuit allegations? No, I have not. But he's always in trouble. Monkey has joined us today. Velvet Pilot says comedian Jim Norton thinks Nikki Haley has a better chance of beating Biden. He's officially brain dead. Oh, and interesting, and I'll have to look for the story. I don't have it pulled up, but one of Michelle Obama's quote friends, and this is a news article, but like I said, I don't have it pulled up. I'll see if I can find it for tomorrow. Claims to have put her on the ballot in the hopes that she'll run. Please. Urban says Canada is a country of under 40 million population, slated to accept 500,000 more immigrants this year. That's too much. And that's not counting the undocumented ones that are trafficked by the RCMP across the line. And Zane says cutting some wire won't stop Texas. I hope not. And Max says it's not even Mexicans coming over anymore. That's right. They're seeing more Venezuelans and South Americans. Well, more to the point, though, we're seeing more people from other parts of the world than we are from South America, period. So, yeah, more Venezuelans and Hondurans and people like this are trying to come. But most of who's crossing the border are from the Middle East, Africa, and parts of Asia, including China. Urban says, don't let Trudeau anywhere near those truckers. Oh, they'll probably beat him down. Donna says, I thought I knew what treason was, but I was wrong. Leaders that let illegals in the country doesn't count. And Dragon says it's a shame that it takes something to get this bad to get people to wake up. However, sometimes it takes a crisis or extreme circumstance to prompt meaningful change or action. Well, you would hope. You would hope so. Because, and this is something I've said before, and I should put it on a t-shirt. You can wake the sheep up, but they're still sheep. So just because they're aware of it doesn't mean they're going to take any kind of action. And Zane doesn't remember the Bundy Ranch very well. They were, what was it? The Bureau of Land Management trying to force the Bundy Ranch from using open sourced land for grazing and tried to confiscate their cattle. Just in a nutshell, there's more to it than that, but to give you the basic idea, Helter says Governor Abbott declares you shall not pass. Yeah, he's Gandalf now. And Timothy says if Biden actually cared about the border, things like this wouldn't have to happen. People that live there need help. Timothy, if he really cared about the border, he wouldn't be trying to use the situation there as leverage to send tax money to the Ukraine, because he's still trying to get, what is it, 68 billion of a $105 billion package is going to the Ukraine, and then some like 15 or 17 billion is for Israel. And then by the time you get to how much is going to the border, it doesn't even count. And Spectre is here. Glad you could make it. Urban says, meanwhile, Canada's about 3 months behind Australia. Probably. And Raccoon says the details of the McMahon suit is hilarious. I haven't really seen that. I haven't really seen it. Velvet Pilot says Big Mike for Emperor of the United States 2024. There you go. And a couple more and we'll move on here. Timothy says Texas is doing what they need to do to protect their citizens. Let them defend. No one else will. I can't blame them. And Bernab Sanchez is here. Glad you could make it today. Thanks for joining us as we move around here. Pet peeve time. Pet peeve time. We're going to jump to France. We're going to jump to France and look at something stupid. And this is from ABC News. You've probably seen this. Activists splatter Mona Lisa with soup in the Louvre. Activists splatter Mona Lisa with soup in the Louvre. My wife's been to the Louvre when she was staying in Europe. I'll pause this so that you can watch the actual video clip for those of you who can see. And this should be impossible. And it makes things like this make me think this is staged. It should not be possible. When she was stationed in Europe before her deployment, she visited the Louvre. But and let me turn the sound on here so you can catch this and watch stupid, spotty European kids being bratty and foolish.
Mais non, mais sérieusement. Qu'est-ce qu'il y a important? Qu'est-ce qu'il y a de plus important? L'art, le droit et l'alimentation saine et durable.
Speaking French, obviously. The activists were from Riposte Alimentaire, or translation, Food Response, the food security group that posted the video online. Now, so now they're doing this for food insecurity. Give me a break. And I got a insecurity. It's on my list. Insecurity is on my list. I got my short list right there because I write things down. Okay. I'm sick of hearing about what people are insecure about. And if you're hungry, you're stupid. I'm sorry. Because there's food out there if you're willing to go and get it. Go and get it. Seriously. I mean, there are pantries everywhere. There's food available. You can get food. All right. Maybe I don't know how it is in France. Okay. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. And they do something like this knowing that they're not going to get in trouble because that thing is behind like 6 inches of bulletproof glass. There's no way they can hurt that painting. Didn't think it was that small though, did you? That thing is like 14 inches tall without the frame. Oh, God. Let me catch up some comments here really quick. Sportsmobile says, I think the treason is still a hanging offense. Yeah, it'd be nice, wouldn't it? The governmental system and the criminal justice system was made up by them for us. They are by criminals for the criminals. Sure feels that way, doesn't it? And Bernab says, I'm sick of us financing other countries' problems when we have enough problems here. And that's really what it boils down to. That's what makes the concept of the whole Make America Great Again offering or philosophy, if you will, so appealing to a lot of people. Whether people agree with Trump or not or whatever, yeah, let's fix what's going on here before we worry about everybody else. Let's stop throwing money all over the planet and fix what's going on here. And Zane says, why the Mona Lisa? Seriously. What's so special about the Mona Lisa? Only its prestige, its value. Let me read the comment, what it says here in the paragraph. Activists splattered the glass-covered Mona Lisa painting with soup at the Louvre Museum in Paris on Sunday, according to the food security group behind the protest. Excuse me. 2 women opened thermoses and splashed the famous Leonardo da Vinci painting at about 10 a.m., said the group Riposta Alimentaire, or Food Response. A video posted online by the group showed streaks and splashes of orange on the bulletproof glass and the blue wall behind the painting. Pathetic. Look at them. Look at those kids. They need to be put over somebody's knee. They're probably young enough. The women who the group identified as Sasha, 24, and Marie Gillette, 63. Really? I guess that's the one on the left. Then crossed behind the protective wooden railing, stood on either side of the painting, and called for the integration of food into the general social security system. Oh my God. In France, 1 in 3 people skip meals due to lack of means. How do you know that? Riposte Alimentaire said in a statement posted in French. At the same time, 20% of the food produced is thrown away. Our model stigmatizes the most precarious and does not respect our fundamental right to food. A fundamental right to food, huh? Go out and get it. Seriously. Who owes me a meal? That I have a problem with that phrasing. A fundamental right to food. Who owes me a meal? Anybody? Or do I need to do it myself? Hell, the Bible says, by the sweat of your own brow, you shall eat your daily bread, right? It's in Genesis. I mean, seriously. And it's more than 20%. They got that wrong too. Because every country throws away a mass amount of food. I don't know if they're just counting what supermarket and restaurant waste is, but from farm to table, as it were, nearly 60% in every country. Because that's a huge pet peeve of mine as well, is how much food is wasted. But you can still get it, and you're responsible for it on your own unless something is hindering you from it deliberately. Nobody owes me a meal. Nobody. Urban says all major paintings are behind a protective layer of glass, which has UV protection and is splatterproof. Exactly. And Velvet Pilot says, yeah, take that, Da Vinci. You, yeah, there you go. And Donna says 25 governors support Abbott's Abbott, Georgia is one of them. And it'll increase as popularity increases with the whole movement. And Zane says a waste of food. Yeah, wasting food to protest wasting food. How's that for irony? Dragon says these people throwing soup are protected masterpieces in museums are actually being paid to make the public image of environmental activists look ridiculous so that no one takes them seriously. And that could be. There you go. David Jones says, no soup for you. Soup Nazi. Soup Nazi, everyone. There you go. That's it. Alex says, have you ever had chipotle? I don't know. I don't know. I don't think I ever ate at a chipotle. And Max says throwing soup for food insecurities makes perfect sense. And All People says every Western nation forces farmers to destroy food. That's right, as a way to manipulate the market and economy. And if you've ever been out there, I'm sure some of you have seen them dumping entire vats of milk, pouring it out into the roadside, and tilling over crops that are ready to be harvested, and on and on and on. Helter says, I love the absurdism behind these actions. The message is so simple. We value these works of art, and what these folks are doing is symbolically demonstrating how we're treating Earth. And All People says, is it true that the Mona Lisa model was a fellow and not a gal? That's just a lot of speculation. There's no way to ever really know. No way to ever really know. But I've heard people speculate on that. And Zane says, they are older than I thought. Yeah, I know. Well, it's hard to tell from the picture. And one more here. Urban says the senior activist is old enough to know better. Her family should do an intervention because grandma has gone full cringe. Well, maybe they'll stick her in a home. And Sven says, and yet the leftists want to shut down all farmers. Strange pile of ideals. And Bernab says that's the problem with the entitlement system. Yeah, that is absolutely an example of entitlement right there. What are you going to do? And Max says they should learn how to fast. I hear France has an obesity issue. Most Western nations do, actually. And speaking of waste, let's get back to punishing people for helping. We looked at an article like this last week. This is a new one. And this is from Gistfest. Illinois city threatens to fine a church $750 a day for providing shelter to the homeless. And that's the First Baptist Church right there. As the U.S. is experiencing dangerously cold temperatures, homeless people are having it worse. According to reports, over 120 million people were under wind chill alerts. Hence, the National Weather Service warned to avoid outside activities if possible. Due to the weather warnings, many churches are stepping up to provide overnight warming shelters for those experiencing homelessness in their cities, but with a cost, both financially and for some legally. An Illinois city threatened to fine a church $750 a day for housing homeless people. And I talked about an article like this in a different state last week because churches keep getting in trouble for doing this. They keep getting in trouble for allowing the homeless into their church. So here we go. According to a nonprofit group, the city officials ordered First Baptist Church to stop offering refuge to homeless people. However, it risks facing heavy fines if the church doesn't comply. Overnight warming locations, a volunteer-run organization in Illinois, revealed in a Facebook post that Edwardsville, a town about 25 miles north of St. Louis, issued the warning. The group said they issued citations to the First Baptist Church for opening as an overnight warming location, not declaring themselves a shelter, but just letting people sit there. In the post, the group shared a January 10th, 2024 letter addressed to Edwardsville Mayor Art Risavi, the group wrote that the church stepped up in the winter to offer shelter from the cold to people. Hence, it demanded that the city drop its threats. As leadership and community members, we requested cooperation among city leadership, the letter says, not threats of shutting down a solution that can save lives and meet an actual need in our community. Here's the trick. They wouldn't need to do this if the shelters weren't full of migrants. Think about it. Gary Edwards is here. He says he's late. That's okay. Glad you could make it. And Samanda is here as well. And Zane wants to see better food conservation laws. It would be nice. It would be nice. And David Jones said backyard gardening. If you can, you should try it. You should try it. And Bernard wants to remind people to hit the thumbs up button. Would be very much appreciated. But that's the issue here, is that their shelters are overloaded. Their shelters are getting priority requirements for migrants. They're full. And so a church saying, all right, you know what? You can use us as a warm-up location, not even a shelter, a warm-up location, okay? Because that's what they're on the list for, and they're getting fined for it. Isn't that something a church should do? You would think. Samantha says, but the federal government can provide shelters for, yeah, well, that would be nice. And Zane says, I have a hot take. Why not build houses for the homeless, not big houses, but small quasi-studios? Because they would destroy them. Nobody wants to, they have to be transitioned back into a certain mentality of living if they even want a place. It gets really sketchy. Like I said, I've worked with the homeless. My wife has more experience with it than I do. Most of them don't want a place. Many of them want to be out there. And it's a hard concept for a lot of people to grasp. You could, for those who do or would take a place, many of them have really bad drug habits, really bad sanitation habits. They'll destroy it. Look at the hotels where they were allowed to stay in when they housed homeless people in the past. Completely obliterated. It gets pretty bad. Sven says Chicago has made Illinois a gross joke. And Monkey says the church should say they're doing overnight church so the city can't encroach on the First Amendment. Basically Sunday church, but overnight. And then Cruising says YouTube does not seem to be accepting super chats for you. I've tried twice, but it won't go through. Really? Really? That's fascinating. I mean, far be it for me to ask anybody else to test that. But because I do get that from time to time, but there shouldn't be an issue with the super chat. And Semper Fi says they want us to listen to those that know best, throw away food, and eat bugs. No kidding. And Velvet Pilot says, isn't it just because the government can't track these people if they're given help by civilians? And that's part of it also. The government wants to be able to control them. They want to be able to track and control them and to micromanage even the homeless. They want to micromanage even the homeless, which is a scary thing. A very scary thing. So I don't know why Super Chat wouldn't be on there. But I'll throw the PayPal on there if anybody wants to use the PayPal. Because that's an entirely different animal. And there's the PayPal link. And there's Monkey. Monkey made a donation. I guess it does work. It's $5 for the kitties. Much appreciated, Monkey. Thank you very much. Every little bit helps. Every little bit counts. And every little bit is always appreciated, large or small. Donna says people who want housing can't get into it, not mental or druggies. Yeah, if you want it and you're working and you're an honest citizen, you have a hard time. If you're homeless and they offer it to you, you're like, I don't want that. And Gary Edwards says hardcore homeless don't want to return to the same system that chewed them up and spit them out on the street in the first place. And that's often the attitude. And I've talked to, and my wife has talked to people that are homeless that are like, in their eyes, we're the idiots because we're paying taxes, we're paying bills, we're having to deal with authority all the time. And they don't. They don't. Speaking of more stupid, more stupid. And this is a local Atlanta article. And this is one that my wife threw out to me. And this comes from WSB TV. Metro Atlanta School District to give cheese sandwiches to students with unpaid lunch balances. Okay. Grilled cheese sandwiches. You would think that wouldn't be a problem. District leaders said that next month they'll offer cheese sandwiches to any student who has gotten behind. So they can't afford to pay their lunch tab anymore. But we'll still feed you. And this is what we can afford, right? Channel 2's Audrey Washington was in Decatur Tuesday, where school officials said the new procedure will help bring down their district-wide unpaid lunch fee balance of nearly $90,000 because nobody pays that stuff. Trust me. Most people don't pay it. They let it go into a default. In a statement, the district explained the change and called the cheese sandwich an alternative meal. The program offering meal grants and waivers ended in 2022, and the public school district resumed their regular practice of charging for meals. And the reason there was grants was because of the C virus. Let me point that out. However, city schools of Decatur permitted students to continue to receive regular priced meals at no cost, even if they had a balance on their account. The unpaid lunch fees have resulted in a district-wide balance of $88,000, prompting a change in the meal payment procedure. Jamie Crow Houston is a mother and runs Gooder a Hunger Solution organization that services Decatur and other parts of Metro Atlanta. She said the move would have a bad effect on kids. Quote, it stigmatizes these students immediately, Crow Houston said. And think about the shame that child is facing. And they're hungry. And this is basically the attitude. Washington talked to school officials off camera Tuesday who said that during the pandemic, the federal government provided funds for every public school student to receive their meals for free. According to City of Decatur schools, the meal payment breaks down in part like this. Middle and high school students have a max of 3 charged meals equivalent to $10.50 per student for the year. Elementary school students have a max of 3 charged meals equivalent to $9.75 per student for the year. Once the limit is reached, students will receive the alternative cheese sandwich and milk lunch until the balance is paid off. Quote again from Houston, no child deserves that. They're literally being punished because their parents live in poverty. It doesn't say their parents live in poverty. It says they haven't been paying the damn bill. All right? And that could be anybody, first of all. That could be damn near anybody. They just didn't pay the bill. Second of all, give me a grill. Who doesn't want a grilled cheese sandwich? I'll take a grilled cheese sandwich right now. I'll eat it on the air. Give me a grilled cheese sandwich. Thirdly, another huge pet peeve of mine, and I've talked about this before because we've looked at articles about it. The waste in the schools is phenomenal. Damn near 70% of the food that those kids pick up at the lunch counter ends up in the trash. They don't eat that shit. So what difference does it make? What difference does it make? They're hungry and they're embarrassed because they have a grilled cheese sandwich. My ass. It's just, the whole article just annoys the hell out of me. Oh my God. Bernab says, I remember when Louisiana was underwater and a bunch of these people that were housed in different places had people destroying the dwellings. That's right. And Gary Edwards says there are leftists who purposely move the homeless after a sweep back into residential areas in order to harass homeowners. They do shift them around sometimes. That is true. That is true. They can be weaponized. And Sven says limits unless you are illegal. Yeah, that's right. Because I bet you no illegal is paying for their school lunch. And Bernab says he'll take a Gouda on rye. I like rye bread. I can't stand standard packaged bread, the squishy bread where you can take a whole loaf and crush it into a little ball. I want some hearty bread, damn it. Yeah, Velvet Pilot says, but think of the children. Yeah, said every politician ever, and they're all full of shit. Big news story. Big news story. We're going to shift from Georgia to New York. We're going to shift from Georgia to New York City. And this is a New York Daily News article. You may have heard this one. New York police pulled over Central Park 5 Councilman Yousef Salam as vote looms on bill requiring cops to record stops. There you go. And Puck U says people not paying have cable TV and 4 cell phones. Excuse me. That's because cable's considered a utility, has been since the early 90s. And so if you are a welfare recipient, you can get your cable either free or on a very extremely reduced rate, like 10%. There they are. There they are. And I hate articles talking about the Central Park 5 because they are guilty. And I have to say it's an opinion because it's YouTube, but I'll explain in a moment. New York Central Park 5 city councilman. It makes me sick to my stomach that this guy's a councilman. Yousef Salam says police stopped him without explanation as he drove with his family through Harlem on Friday night, an incident that comes as the city council plans to override the vote on Mayor Eric Adams' veto of a bill that will require cops to document their street stops. And I don't know if it says it in this article, but there's been a follow-up on this, that procedure was completely followed. Salam said he was listening in to a call with my council colleagues on speakerphone when he was stopped. I bet. Sounds staged, anybody? I introduced myself as Councilman Yousef Salam. Yeah. Oh my God. Was it something along the lines of, do you know who the hell I am, Officer so-and-so? And subsequently asked the officer why I was pulled over. Salam said in a statement, instead of answering my question, the officer stated, we're done here, and proceeded to walk away because the officer knew he was walking into a trap. You're on a speakerphone. You got other people in the car. You say, I'm Councilman so-and-so, and the officer's like, I'm not dealing with this shit. Bye. I don't blame him for walking away at all. Salam, who was just named chairman of the city council's public safety committee, what a coincidence, said that the officer should at the very least have explained why he was pulled over. If the How Many Stops Act bill is made into law over Adams' veto, the cop would have also taken down Salam's name and filed a report at the stop. Salam said he was pulled over in his beloved village of Harlem, but didn't say exactly where or when on Friday night. An email to the council member for more information about the incident was not returned. And it goes on to say the experience only amplifies the importance of transparency for all police investigative stops because of the lack of transparency allows racial profiling and unconstitutional stops of all types to occur and often goes unreported, said Salam. Okay. There we go. Couple more comments, and I'll tell you why this really pisses me off. I mean, it's already obvious it's a setup. He just happens to be on speakerphone with the other councilman. He introduces himself, and the cop is like, nah, forget it, and walks away because he doesn't want to deal with it. He might have had a legitimate reason for stopping him and didn't want to put up with the bullshit. Urban says it was so simple in the 80s. The cafeteria tab was paid at registration time along with all the other fees. Kids got a book of tickets for the year printed on actual paper. And Velvet Pilot made a donation to the channel. Says this is so you can be stigmatized by a cheese sandwich, or can't be stigmatized. Thank you, Velvet Pilot. I want a grilled cheese now, actually. I like cheese. Dragon says the only thing the video demonstrates is the courtesy extended to those in office that citizens rarely see. I don't see how race had anything to do with it. And Helter says it looks like Yousef is trying to start some friction against the police, knowing he was in the wrong. And Puck You, and I pronounce it that way on purpose, I know what PH means, says, where's Al Sharpton? Hiding in the wings. Al Sharpton was there for them in the 80s, but I'm going to get into that in a second. And Urban says race is the token coin. It gains value, it loses value, but it's still a sort of currency. Very well put, Urban. And there's all people. I knew you'd say something, but I'll emphasize in a moment. Exactly. The Central Park Five were never exonerated. Roberta Glass tells the true story there from a Caribbean migrant families use political influence to get released. Okay. Expanding on that, expanding on what all people just said there. I'll put it back up in case I talked too quickly. What happened that night? Now, Al Sharpton has been all over it for forever, and he used it to attack Donald Trump, saying it's Donald Trump's fault that they went to jail, okay, that they went to prison. That's not true. Donald Trump made a very impassioned letter to the editor plea in the New York papers after the incident that they were arrested for. Not mentioning it, but not specifically talking about it. If you read the letter, it's very sad, but he makes a fantastic point about how, I love this city. I grew up here. It's being torn apart. Please, somebody do something. Now, what really happened that night? I believe, and I could be off on the times, correct me if I'm wrong, between like 10 and 2 a.m., there was a crime wave in Central Park. Some 50 to 80, I want to say, Black and Hispanic youths moving as a mob through Central Park, savagely beating and robbing people and committing rapes. Okay. This happened around 2 a.m., I think. All right. Because I'm a little fuzzy there. But like I said, if I'm off, excuse me, if I'm off, you can correct me. Somebody tell me in the comments, because I'm sure somebody's looking it up. They're surrounding the park. They're cordoning it off, right? Mobs of these youth are pouring through a weak spot in the barriers. The Central Park Five are the ones that got caught. They're the ones that couldn't get away. They were absolutely involved with what was going on. Absolutely. It's not Donald Trump's fault they went to jail. And they get off. Not exonerated, but they got off. And now this guy's on the city council. It's embarrassing. It's absolutely embarrassing. And all people emphasizes that neither they nor the Memphis Three were ever exonerated, and evidence shows that both groups are guilty. They couldn't necessarily tie them to the rape because, one, some of these people were beaten so badly they had memory loss, and two, because there was so much DNA, they couldn't do anything with it, especially in the 80s when that was a new science. It's really horrible. If you go and you read the actual history of that or look at the documentaries on it, those guys were involved. They were involved. It's really disgusting. But we're gonna switch gears. Excuse me, throat's acting up here. Let me see if I can pause this. Here we go. We're gonna shift gears for a moment, and I'm going to. Is the sound on? Yes, it is. Stay paused. I'm going to show you a clip. Is it going to let me play it, or is it going to act up? I think I'm having problems with it. I wanted to show you a clip. Puck says, turn Manhattan into a prison like the movie Escape from New York. Yeah, that would be nice. That would be nice. Well, my video froze. The video froze. I don't know if it's going to work. I'll see if I can get that to work. And I'll play this for you. This is interesting. And this is in a public school. And it shows you where our youth is today. Okay, here you go. This is an ex-post. This is a school cafeteria, high school cafeteria. Watch what happens. And I'll explain it for those of you who are listening and not able to see.
Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit!
All right. You saw that. Now, oh, and Bingo has to go. Sorry, Bingo. Glad you could join us here today. And Gary Edwards says it was a wilding incident in Central Park. But anyway, what's going on in that video clip? That's the school cafeteria, high school. The boy goes up to the lunch worker. It's not a teacher, I believe. It's a lunch worker in the cafeteria there. Got her hairnet and her little uniform on, and strikes her. Not sure why he did that. It's not explained. He hits this woman. She smacks him in the mouth, and he fell apart. He started crying and ran out of the room. You could see his face. You could hear him bawl. You could start hearing him bawl just before the other guy starts yelling, "Oh shit, oh shit." This is our youth. Brazen enough, for whatever reason. I mean, he's in the lunchroom. Brazen enough to attack an adult in school. Gets smacked and wets his pants.
Oh shit!
There he is. I don't know. It's a little fuzzy, but look at his face. Look at his face. You can hear those teardrops hitting the floor. Pathetic. Cruising says you don't mess with school support staff. They don't have a professional license that's endangered if they defend themselves. I wonder, though, because I don't know where this is. I'm not sure where that is, but I'm willing to bet, though, there's some kind of discipline for her that's far more severe than anything that's going to happen to this kid. You know what I mean? She'll be hearing it about striking a student, even though she was obviously provoked and possibly felt that she was defending herself. I have no problem with her striking that kid. He hit her first, and he had no business there. But look at that. And I'm sure she got some kind of lecture, at least, maybe a written reprimand, whatever it is. Pisses me off because I've seen too much of it. That's why I can't work in those professions anymore. As some of you know my story about the fight on my bus when because I've talked about it before. Fifth grader and a kindergarten student, and the fifth grader wails on him, and they wrote up both of them. Both of them got a suspension for fighting. The little fifth grade kid or the kindergarten kid, because he defended himself. He had the nerve to defend himself, and they wanted me to write him up also, and I refused to do it. And they wrote me up for not writing him up. Well, I'm not writing the kid up. He got hit for about a good solid 30 seconds before he started even trying to punch back. And legally, I can't interfere. I'm not allowed to touch those kids. This was Durham School Services when I was doing that. I can't work in those professions anymore because you can't do anything. If kids are fighting and I'm in motion, I can't stop the bus. But if I was able to pull over somewhere, I ended up having to turn around and go back to the school because I wasn't far away from it. The only thing legally I'm allowed to do is position myself between the two and take the beating for the kid without touching them. That's where we're at. All People says, talking about the previous subject, the Central Park Five blame Trump for being convicted, but they're lying. Yeah, and again, you can find Trump's letter to the editor, his article, online. Read it for yourselves. After Trump's letter, the editor was published. He had nothing to do with them. Excuse me. Monkey says that kid probably got hit by an adult for the first time. That could be. And Urban says, I'm always wary of short clips to begin midstream. Yeah, I know. Like I said, I don't know what started it, but it's pretty sad. And Monkey says the parents never hit him. Raccoon says maybe he's special. Who knows? South Florida says I would have done more than that. And all people said he hit a woman. Zane says it's lucky that's all he got. Basically. And there's some speculation here that the kid might be special needs. There's no way to know. There's no way to know just from that. Let me see. Urban says not to darken the metaphor, but this reminds me of when the Palestinians cheer on October 7th and immediately cry ceasefire when Israel hits them back. Well, that's what people do. You play victim. Brian says, what are kids taking karate and taekwondo for? For exercise, because Lord knows they can't fight. Take my word for it. I got 2 black belts in those systems. I got one from in karate from Valari Studios before it became the Masters Clinic, and one from Chongmu Dowei, both in the Boston area. And, you know, tippity tap for points and that bullshit, that's not fighting. You know, I had more experience actually fighting, hanging around with kids from Thailand and where was Virak from? Cambodia. Because that's where I learned how to do a lot of fighting before I even joined any martial arts studios, and I could have mopped the floor with just about everybody in there. And Eric says, good for you not writing that kid up. People need to stand up more. It's so easy for someone to bend under pressure. They can write me up. Yeah, what are you going to do? Suspend me for the day? Let somebody else drive those brats around. And Sven says, my son protected a girl getting beaten up and he was suspended. That was grade school. After I informed the principal he was doing the wrong thing, we went out for dinner. His choice. Interesting. And Raccoon says that they were a kid in the 80s and saw a bus driver pull 2 kids apart fighting. He tossed the bully across the bus. I don't recall if the driver was scolded. Back then, probably not. And Zane says it's all legal jargon that was written by politicians who have never been in that situation. Yeah, well, I knew you were talking about the bus incident, Brian. But often it's arguments that are made by people that are not in those situations and do not understand how it works, how it looks, haven't been there. I can give you another really good example. And this comes from my mental health experience. I also have worked in mental health. My wife and I both worked in the same facility together. Not in our facility, but in another facility. There was a staff member that we knew of that one of the clients filled a, had, like one of them, the big soda cups, the 44-ounce cups, filled it with urine and walked past her. And this is an adult, okay? This is an adult. 30s, maybe. I want to say that I heard that this person was in their early 30s or something. Threw the cup of urine in the staff member's face while she was standing there talking to someone else. So she just gets splashed, and she pops and turns and slaps her. Fired and charged by the state for assault on a disabled person. Mentally disabled. But what would you do if somebody walked by and threw a cup of urine on her? I don't care how much training she's had by the state working in a mental health facility. How would the average person react to a shock like that? And then they're like, how dare you? That person's disabled. They knew what they were doing, okay? I don't care how disabled they are. Something that you learn when, excuse me, and I'm getting close to the time here, but that's okay. I'll finish my thought. Working with mental patients, with people who are mentally disabled, is that there is a difference, there is a line between how much of it is the mental health issue and how much of it is the personality of the individual. And you'll find most often that the mental health issue takes away the filter that holds back your personality. So if you're a person with a really sweet nature, you're going to be super sweet and sugary to the point where it's almost annoying. If you're a bastard, you're going to be a real bastard. You're going to be evil to people because there's no filter to stop you from making your actions. That's the personality of the girl throwing the urine. The mental health kept her from saying, no, that's probably not a good idea. Basically, Monkey says being mentally ill does not excuse you from punishment. Yeah, tell that to the bureaucrats who write the laws. And like I said, totally, excuse me, I can understand if you had to put a written reprimand in a file, maybe because you're dealing with wards of the state. All right, these people are in state custody. But I would love to see the lawmaker take a face full of urine and see how they would react. But with that, we'll go ahead and start wrapping things up as we pass the hour. Again, this is Coffee Talk, or at Coffee Talk Live and at Coffee Talk, or at Coffee Talk Live and at Prepper University on YouTube, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter, and Fistful of Radio, fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, special thanks to Monkey and to Velvet Pilot for making donations to the channel today. Much appreciated, as always. And with that, we'll go ahead and sign off. Thanks to everybody who was able to join us here today. Hope you got something out of the conversation. If you are late or you missed it, you can catch it on the replay. And all people wants to know if I can leave the chat up today. I don't know how to do that. So if I shut down, I guess the chat just stops. I don't know how that works.